Welcome back to my little podcast channel over here. I know that I've been gone for a while. If you see my previous video, you'll know why. So, this is just going to be a period where I'm going to try to maybe get my foot planted on the ground and maybe try to kind of figure out what I really want to do. But, with that out of the way, let's just get into the video. So, we all know the Game Gear Micro, right? That came out. People bought it. people had it in their grasps. It didn't really do well. I mean, it doesn't really help that it only came out in Japan, but I think that was on purpose because obviously Sega knew that people probably weren't going to like this, so they just decided to only release it in one specific region. It had a lot of potential. A Game Gear Micro or Mini had a lot of potential, but I think it was over gimmicked, because obviously they literally made it as small as humanly possible to the point where they even needed a little like magnifying sort of screen thing just so you can play the freaking games. And obviously it does not look comfortable to hold. Just looking at videos of people playing on it, it just does not look comfortable in the slightest. It looks like you'll have to squint in order to see the games, and also just the buttons look really tiny. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would have been best if they just kind of had the original, maybe Game Gear, and either kept it the same size or shrunk it down just a little bit, but maybe make the buttons a little bigger, because obviously this is a bit of an overkill. And also just maybe make it a little better, maybe have it, have more games. Obviously having maybe 4 games, and each different Game Gear color, is 4 new games. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it would just be better if you just had all the games in one Game Gear Micro and just had a little menu to where you could go through all of them. Because here's the thing, right? It's you can't do that. There's a reason that the SNES Mini didn't have 4 different variants with different games on them. One had Street Fighter, the other one had Secret of Mana. That's not, no, because how it is that one person is going to buy one single one and for one specific game and then not try out all the others. I think what the point of these mini consoles is to introduce people to these older games, because obviously there is interest for older games, but younger people may only want it to play I don't know, Mario RPG, right? I mean that's why I have my SNES Mini. I really wanted to get Mario RPG, and so I played it and I loved it. And then I also saw that it had other games, so I tried it out. I mean, the biggest selling point of the SNES Mini was Star Fox 2, so that only helps my point more that people really only want it to for one game or 2 games or a few, and then those extra games are kind of introductory things where it's just okay, so if you like this, why not try this out? Because there may be someone who would want to play Sonic 1 on the Game Gear, and then after playing that, they can play maybe Sonic 2 or, maybe an RPG, right? And, they find out that they really love that RPG. I'm not really too familiar with all the games on the Game Gear Micro, but I do know there are some RPGs in there that are pretty beloved, all things considered. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the Game Gear Micro. I know I went on a little too long over it, but we're gonna discuss the main point now. The Dreamcast Mini. So, I really feel like they could do this right. Because, I mean, the Genesis Mini was really good, right? The Genesis Mini had pretty much all the games that everyone wanted, except for Sonic 3 Knuckles. I'm still really upset about that they just refused to try to, fight, the legal battle to be able to have Sonic 3's soundtrack on it, but whatever, right? So, yeah, the Genesis Mini was really good, and I think if they kind of use that same formula for the Dreamcast Mini, it would get Sega a lot of money, because obviously Sega's, I don't want to say they're in a rough time, but, recent news has come up that isn't really good, you know what I mean? And so I feel like they could really use something like this just to, boost, confidence in, other people's confidence, because people are gonna like look at all these bad news like, oh, they're laying off a bunch of employees and they're giving up the arcade business. They're something like this is definitely gonna like make them look good to the public again. And I think the biggest selling point for the Dreamcast Mini could just be SA1 and 2, because I mean the original SA1. So there were two versions of SA1, one on the Dreamcast and the DX port that came out on the GameCube, and those two are completely different. I personally believe the Dreamcast version looks a lot better, because the DX port has a lot of changed graphics, and I kind of want to make that whole video on that separately, just talk about why it's like that. I do have my own theory, but whatever, we'll get into it when we get into it. And so yeah, the biggest selling point could be SA1 and 2, obviously. And I feel like there could be some other games. I don't really know a lot of games other than Sonic that Sega has made. I do know Knights, I do know Jet Set Radio, I know all this stuff, but I don't know really, like, a lot of their games are pretty obscure. Like, especially to people like me who are younger and really only know them for Sonic. There are a lot of games that are extremely obscure, to them anyway. And so I feel like it could be really good way to get people interested in other Sega franchises and maybe bring about hype and interest for them, and maybe possibly Sega could bring those series back. I think that's mainly what the Dreamcast Mini could be for, and I think that's the purpose that it can serve, is to kind of help people get interested in these games again, and just kind of just make them wanted. And so, Sega can make them, and they'll get the money, and then obviously they'll have other franchises back. That's obviously a best case scenario. If that happens, if they bring back a bunch of their beloved games and not just shove in some obscure RPGs that were only released like in Japan. But yeah, I feel like the Dreamcast Mini could also be a really good way to bring back games that could not be emulated on your computer, because the Dreamcast had a thing on its controller called a VMU, which was basically this memory unit, but it also acted sort of as a handheld, and you could like do things like manipulate some of your save data on it. And also, I believe with SA1 and 2, it was one of the Sonic Adventure games, you could play like this miniature Chow Garden on your VMU. And so I'm thinking maybe with a Dreamcast Mini, it could be a good way to kind of bring back games that required a VMU in order to play. Like, I heard I never played Sonic Shuffle. I don't even have a Dreamcast emulator, so I don't even know this for sure. But I feel like with Sonic Shuffle, it requires a VMU, because the game tells you, hey, look at your VMU for something. And obviously you can't really emulate a VMU. Maybe you can by some really obscure method, but as far as I know, it's basically impossible. So I feel like with the Dreamcast Mini, it'd be a good way to kind of have that hardware and to be able to have that VMU so you could play games like Sonic Shuffle. And maybe there are some other games that required a VMU. I'm not entirely sure, but that's just what I think. And that's basically it. I know a lot of I know there may be an issue where it's like, okay, well, what if they re-release some of these old games? Then what's the point of the Dreamcast Mini? And to that, I'd say, I don't think it really matters. I mean, Nintendo had the Virtual Console on the Wii and the Wii U, and those were really good, and they had a lot of NES and SNES games, and they still, had the classics, the minis. And so I feel like this really shouldn't be a problem to them, because I think people will still buy it. Especially with that VMU and with that controller, and, really have that Dreamcast authentic feel. Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, that's basically it. That's really all I want to talk about here. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll try not to upload again in a month. I'll see if I can have a new video up sometime soon. I really am sorry, but yeah, I'm gonna try to do YouTube again. I'm having all these ideas suddenly flow back to me, and so, yeah, thank you for listening. I'll see you guys later. Have a good day.